Good afternoon, and welcome to Expose Yourself to Art, a show that looks at the creative process by asking artists to join us in a talk about their art and their life. My name is David Schrader, and with me, as always, is my co-host, Linda Scheller. Come on in, Linda, and join the party. There we go.
Thank you, David.
So, how was your Thanksgiving?
It was lovely. I
Yeah.
went to my son's house, and his girlfriend and her family were there, and there was a lot of delicious food, and we played games, and it was just beautiful. How about yours?
Oh, it's wonderful. We flew up to Portland to meet with the family. Yeah, that was nice.
Good.
And by the way, I saw pictures of your son on Facebook with two cats, and
Yeah.
they had interesting names.
Uh-huh. Well,
Yeah,
Yggdrasil and Freya.
it could
He
be
was a
on.
literature major, and but I suspect those names might have come from one of those games.
Oh, okay. So, our guest today is Eric Houck. He is a photographer, and he has been asked to become a judge for a big photo contest that is entries are taking place right now, and the show will be in February of 2020. So let's bring Eric in, and I should tell people that I'm experiencing some technical difficulty. So I'm going to allow Linda to shoulder the bulk of this interview, and I'll try not to disturb this too much. So let's get Eric in here. There he is. Hello,
Hello.
Hi,
Eric.
Eric.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks for having me
And
on.
maybe you could start out by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I'm from Oakdale, and I grew up in Oakdale until I was 7 years old or so, and moved to Knights Ferry, and which is just a few miles from Oakdale. But I grew up on a ranch there and went to a little tiny school, two-room school in Knights Ferry, and my friend and I were the flag guys. We put up the flag every day and took down the flag every day from fourth grade till eighth grade, till we graduated from there. And when we graduated, they actually presented the flags to us in a ceremony when we left. So that was kind of neat. It was a small town thing. It was very, very, very neat. And then I went to Oakdale High School, and from then I went to junior college in Modesto, and got a real estate license and a contractor's license, and went into business with my dad. And I married my wife Vanessa, and we've been together for, I think it's 33 years, but it could be 30. I don't know. I'm not that great at that, but I think it's 33 years. It's a long time. Anyways, and now we live in East Oakdale, and I started photography actually in 2015. My wife got me a camera and said, "Hey, do this, relieve some stress, occupy yourself a little bit with something positive." And one of my son's friends suggested Instagram to me, and I started posting photos online and looking at the work of really good photographers and deciding what I wanted to do with it. First thing I fell in love with was astrophotography, and I just loved it. And I did that, and I had quite a bit of success with that, and gained quite a few followers on Instagram, and kind of moved into landscape photography. And now I really enjoy wildlife photography because it's relaxing and it's involving. It's less stressful for me. The sunset thing, you wait all day, and if it's good, it's wonderful for about a minute, and you run around like
Hmm.
crazy, and then take as many compositions as you can, and then it's over. But with wildlife photography, you can take your time, and your patience is the main thing. getting close to the animals without disrupting what they're doing. So I find that super rewarding. But I still enjoy the landscape photography, but I don't have that many opportunities anymore.
What kind of equipment do you use, Eric?
I use Canons. My equipment is now okay. I post photos on a Yellowstone page, and I posted this photo and I posted the equipment I use. It's a Canon 5D Mark III. And to me, I was thinking, well, it's a new camera. Well, I got it in 2015. It's the only camera I've ever had. I got it brand new, and I posted my settings in the camera, and they're like, see, you can still take great photos with super old equipment.
Oh my gosh!
And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. I guess maybe my equipment is old now, but it's still kicking. I can still do it. It has the dynamic range is not quite as good as the new mirrorless cameras, but I love the Canon stuff because it's the only one I've ever used. My friends that shoot Nikon, sometimes they'll let me stick my memory card in their camera, and then I take a few pictures, take my memory card out, and then I can compare. I still like what Canon does, so I still like that. But I would like to move to a mirrorless camera.
I'd love to know more about astrophotography. That sounds fascinating.
I can tell you a little bit about it.
Good.
What I do is I go up to Sonora Pass is my favorite place because it's super dark. You don't have a lot of light pollution, and that's the main key. My main target is I do wide angle astrophotography mainly, which is like a whole sky with a Milky Way band going down the middle. And so I have a few apps that let me locate where the Milky Way is going to be at a certain time, and its alignment. Yes, there's one of the photos right there.
Oh,
This is
gorgeous.
this is the Pacific Crest Trail where it comes down above Kennedy Meadows. And so what I do is I'll go up in the early afternoon, I'll eat lunch, and then I'll go up to the mountains, and I scan for locations, and I'll put a little flag, because when it's dark, you go on a moonless night, so the moon doesn't light up your scene. It'll overlight the foreground and it'll drown out the stars because you're taking super long exposures. And so anyways, I'll go up and pre-scout everything, and I'll line up 5 or 6 locations and I'll put them in, this one goes here, and then this one's down the road this way, this one's and I'll line them up towards home. So I'm closest to home on my last composition. And then when it starts to get dark, I have to wait for it to be about 2 hours after dark before it's dark enough. Anything before that in your pictures will come out very blue looking. And you can change the white balance, but then they're very monotone. There's no contrasting colors at all. So you want to wait for it to be very dark. And with this one, it's only probably a quarter of a mile off of the road, and it's a nice trail. And so I packed a tracking unit, which compensates for the rotation of the Earth. So stars, like this is a 5-minute exposure. It's actually 2 exposures. So the foreground is an exposure, and I take that usually about 30 seconds just because it's easy. I could do a 5-minute exposure on the foreground, but it wasn't really necessary here. So it's usually like a 30-second exposure. So the focus is sharp on the foreground, and the stars, I'm going to do a 5-minute exposure for the stars. So I set my tracking unit up, and I have to line it up with Polaris so that it's correctly aligned and compensates the right directions for how the Earth is rotating. Otherwise, your stars will be streaks. Anything over I was shooting with a 14mm lens, and sometimes a 24mm lens. Anything over like 10 seconds, your stars will start to leave little streaks behind them. The Earth is spinning. And so, but with the tracking unit, what it does is it moves the camera the same rate the Earth is moving. So it's just kind of a neat deal. And so you can you can get pinpoint stars, and really bring in the nebulosity and the different planets, and you get those gases and things that really start showing up when you do a super long exposure like that.
Wow.
So,
How did you learn all
what
this,
happens?
Eric?
What happens if you don't use that apparatus?
You will get all of your stars and the bright planets will leave trails behind them. And in a 5-minute exposure, they'd be probably half an inch long in that photo, you know. So it would look funny. So what you want is you want your stars to be pinpoints. You want them to be round little dots, and then you get that fine detail like that. And
How did you learn all this, Eric?
you know what? Trial and error, honestly.
Gee.
There were a few people that I followed on Instagram that were you know, Royce Bear is one of them. They call him the grandfather of astrophotography sometimes. He taught me some things. Well, he teaches everybody. That's what he does. And so I learned a few things from his posts on Instagram, but really the best way is to just go out and try it. Like I found with my 14 millimeter f2.8, I could shoot up to 30 seconds with that lens, and the trails were so small that I could actually use the photos. So I could get pretty long exposures with that one. But with my 24 millimeter, I learned I can't go much more than like 11 seconds with that one. So, but it's the 24 millimeters f1.4, so it brings in much more light. The aperture opens up wider, so it brings in a lot more light. So it's still a good lens to use for that.
And you were saying earlier that NASA has procured some of your photographs?
Yeah, I've had two. Kind of funny, but I've sent them quite a few. But one of the first ones I sent them was a moonrise picture, and that's where I learned the word juxtaposition. I had never heard that word, honestly. But, they have these NASA scientists that kind of help write the paper, and so I submitted it to them. They liked it, and they said to me, "Well, it's on the schedule for this date, this time, and you got the astrophotography photo of the day." And
Wow.
yeah, I was or astronomy picture of the day. I'm sorry. And so I was very excited, and my phone blew up so bad, my iPhone, that it ceased working. It would not, because I got that many emails from all over the world, so I had no idea that
Oh,
was a big a deal. And
that's great.
like, okay, what do I do? What do I do now? I didn't have to do anything, but it was not as scary as I thought, but it was
That's
eye
lovely.
opening. I was like, whoa, this is really something. And I thought, oh, and it's actually kind of easy, you know, but it wasn't. Then I sent in a couple of 100 photos, and they did not win APODs. So, and then my next one was not that. It wasn't astrophotography related. It was a rainbow picture, and I meant to send it in, and I did not, apparently. But it was I had used a long lens and took a picture of a rainbow coming down behind a tree. And so they did a little write up on the refraction of light, and very scientific in NASA form, and it did really well. And that was my second one. So yeah, so gotta love that.
Oh, congratulations. Do we have either of those images here? The juxtaposition of the moon and the tree?
Yeah, the juxtaposition. That would be the oak tree with the yellow moon. It's kind of a small tree.
Okay.
It's stunning.
See if I can find it. There we go.
And there it is.
Oh, so beautiful.
And the funny thing about that one was when I was taking the picture, I didn't figure out that I wanted to line it up like that until it was almost too late. And so as the moon is rising, you have to drop lower and lower to keep the same line up. And I had to go down all the way to the ground, and I looked down, giant cow pie. And,
oh no.
and you know what? I was like, okay, I see the danger. I'm a photographer. I'm going to just go for it. And So I laid down and I took my medicine and I got my shot and so I'm really glad that it paid off because I made that sacrifice.
Does NASA know what lengths you went to
You
get
know
this?
what? They do, but they didn't print that. They did use it in they did a little NASA TV thing that I don't know if it ever aired, but they recorded a little NASA a little thing and I told that story. And I may have been a little more colorful on that one, but yeah, I don't think it ever aired. It was going to be an APOD TV program that they were going to do, and I don't think it ever got approved by enough people. So, but yeah, they knew.
So I was thinking back to when you were in Knight's Ferry. Is it rather dark there? I mean, you lived on what, 60 acres?
We did. When I was young, growing up there, it was very dark. And we had people from the colleges would come out to our ranch and we allowed them to come onto the ranch at night and they would have these star parties and they would get their big telescopes up. So I got an interest at a young age, just being exposed to it that way. And I didn't really learn anything, but I learned I liked it. And so it was, but now, and in 2015, I was still able to take pretty good Milky Way pictures there. But about 2 or 3 years ago, it started getting really bad with light pollution. And now, yeah. So now if I do it, what I do is I'll take a foreground picture there, and then there's a road I can drive up from there. And I drive up and I'll take a star picture from a little ways up the road and get away from some of the lights. And it helps a little. So
do you then superimpose the foreground picture on the star picture? Is that how it works?
Uh-oh. We flashed off.
What?
Everybody flashed off the screen for a second, so it must have been my internet. I'm sorry. Okay. So anyways, it's not as good as it used to be,
So Linda, ask again.
Sure.
That's a good question.
Okay. So you take a foreground picture and then you take the sky picture. Do you superimpose the foreground on the sky? Because you have such different exposure times.
Exactly. Well, sometimes you have to step aside. If there's a prominent object in the foreground, you may have to step to the side of that and take your sky picture from the side of it because in your sky picture, it will smear. And so it'll take up more space than the object would have actually taken up. So you want your sky picture to be clear and your foreground picture to have the actual sky line up. So when you lay the sky over the sky, it's the same sky. But the foreground won't be there in one of the photos.
Okay.
And they don't tell you that on anything. They don't tell you you're going to have to step to the side or it's going to smear, because if there's a big rock there, that rock's going to be, 20% wider than it normally would have been. And when
because the thing is moving.
You lay the other object, you'll have smeared object protruding outside where the in focus one is, the properly exposed and in focus one is. So it won't work. So what you have to do is you have to just step to the side of it.
That's fascinating. Oh, I'm so glad we're talking to you. I've learned so much already.
It is fun. And the only problem I have with it now is now that I've gotten older, it's hard to stay up all night, I'm just tired for like 3 or 4 days after I do it. So I just don't do it as much as I would like.
But you said you're doing more wildlife photography now?
I am, and I really, really enjoy it. It's what really relaxes me. Getting close to the animals without disrupting them. You see so many people running up with their cell phones and getting right in the face of an elk or something. And here's a deer photo of mine. And
so beautiful.
I was really close for that one. But anyways, yes, the wildlife photography is so relaxing for me. And it's exciting too. And you get to take your time a little bit, and patience is the key on the wildlife photos. Would you like to hear the story on this photo?
I would love to hear the story. Please
Okay.
do.
So this is when I first got my camera, and I was up in Groveland, California, and my wife actually spotted this deer, and it was feeding along, but I only had one lens, and it was a 14 millimeter that I was using for astrophotography. And it's, nowadays I take my photos at 400 millimeter, 600 millimeter, even 800 millimeter. So the 14 is just not ideal, but I knew I'd have to get real close, and I didn't want to get real close. So what I did was I watched it, and it was kind of moving up a trail. And so I went out and around and got on the same trail and climbed up a little tree. And the hill was so steep that when I climbed up the tree, if he walked in the right spot, he would be perfectly level with me, which is what you want in your wildlife photos.
Oh,
You don't want to be looking down at your subject, and you don't want to be looking up at your subject. You want to be on level with you. And it took about 10 or 15 minutes, and he did come walking right where I wanted him to. I loved the moss rock in the background.
yes.
It was just so perfect. And it was quite dark, so I had to shoot kind of a slow exposure. But I was in a tree, so there's all kinds of things to rest your camera on. So I rested it in some branches, and he started walking past, and I made a little noise, and he didn't look where I was. He looked a little back, but he stopped perfectly and just froze for me. And I got 3 or 4 pictures before he walked on his way. And and it was just wonderful. And it was one of my first wildlife photos, and probably one of my best of all time.
It's so beautiful.
Oh,
Has
thank
this been, awarded any prizes or
you. It
exhibited
hasn't.
or
It
um,
hasn't. It
what?
did really well on my Instagram page. Um,
Uh-huh.
and but no, and I didn't really enter it into any contests or anything. I haven't been a big competition. I did a lot of competition growing up. I guess I could have mentioned that when we were doing the bio type stuff. But I was a swimmer for my whole life, a competitive
Oh,
swimmer, and I just had so much competition. I just didn't want. I just don't want
mm,
competition anymore. I
yeah,
just want to enjoy. And the bringing the competition into it just kind of turns me off now. So I
sure.
never really entered contests or anything.
While we're talking about wildlife, I can't help but think too, back when you were in Knight's Ferry on those 60 acres, you must have seen a lot of wild animals. Did that have a kind
Ah,
of big part to play in the development of your love of wildlife photography?
We had pheasants, we had ducks, we had geese that would come in, seasonally, and we had coyotes, raccoons. Um, we didn't have any deer, but I drive by there and there are deer now.
Huh.
They put in some walnut and almond orchards, and the deer have moved down
Oh,
from the river, and they're living in those orchards now. So and they have wild turkeys there now. But yeah, it was a magical place to grow up. I didn't know it, but there was gold on our property, and
oh,
there was, yeah. So I used to spend my days. Well, in 4th grade we had California history, and I read about the gold rush. And so I was looking for gold nuggets my whole life when I lived there. I was walking in, I was doing it all wrong. I was walking in these trenches. Our driveway was a quarter of a mile long, and it was dirt. And these trenches would form along there, along the edges. And I would walk up those trenches looking for gold. And I never found anything. Found just pounds of black sand, and I knew black sand and gold were supposed to be together. Well, on the other side of the ranch, there was an old creek, and it didn't flow
oh,
anymore. But I didn't know. Well, that doesn't matter because it's what happened a million years ago, not what happened last week. And so after we had sold the ranch and moved to town, moved back to Oakdale, um, I figured it out one night. I don't know why I was thinking about it, but I'm like, I bet that old creek had gold in it. And I got permission to go back in there from the current owners. And sure enough, it had quite a bit of gold in it. So
oh my.
just one of those things that just like, I didn't know. I was a kid, so.
Oh, let's see that picture you just brought up, David. The gorgeous beach picture.
Oh, yes, that's
Where
Maui.
is this?
This is Maui.
Oh,
That's Lahaina. And I don't know the surfer's name. He just happened to walk through while I was snapping photos.
that's perfect.
It
I
was,
brought it up because it seemed that direct opposite of what you were talking about with astrophotography and wildlife.
yes,
This is
it's
paradise.
when you're in Maui for the first time, you can take pictures of whatever you can. And
Hmm.
I did have plans for some night photography in Maui, but there was a lot of light pollution. It was
Oh,
surprising, yeah, and cloud cover was pretty constant. Um, so I was surprised. The skies were not that dark. I heard I can't remember the name of it, but there's a volcano that you can go up to the top of this volcano. There's a bike trail or something, and I've heard that the skies are very. In fact, there's an observatory up there, and
mm.
Haleakala.
I think that's it. Yes,
Yeah.
I think that is it. So, but yeah, I just I didn't after I had the light pollution problems. I kind of gave up on that, and I don't know. I don't know what you would consider this. I was taking a landscape photo with the ocean and the sunset, so it's kind of what I do. And then I had the model walk through, so that was unplanned.
I really love the way the clouds sort of make a almost flower shape around the palm fronds. Did you put yourself in a position where that would happen, or was it
I
just accidental?
did, and I pointed the camera down towards the ground a bit. I got a little higher, pointed the camera down, so there would be a little lens distortion to kind of pull those
Uh-huh.
clouds up. So it gives them motion almost. So you get the warping of the lens causes lens distortion. And I cropped the bottom because the bottom had the same lens distortion.
Oh,
So, which I didn't want, but I just cropped it and kept the top portion to give those clouds a little bit of motion. Look.
very beautiful.
Oh, thank you. That was quite a trip. That was the best trip of my life, honestly. That Maui trip.
Aw.
Just loved it. Absolutely loved it. That was my wife and I. That was our 25th anniversary trip. So,
Oh, perfect.
yes.
So when you do go out looking for wildlife at this point, how do you proceed? How do you make your plans, or is it more of like, I'll just see what I can find wherever?
Well, okay, I have places that I really like to go. Like around here, my main thing is like in the wintertime, eagles migrate through in Oakdale and Knights Ferry, and you just kind of have to be out there. If you find like a dead animal, they scavenge. The eagles do.
Hmm.
So anytime from late December into spring, you can see eagles, and I usually see 5 or 6, maybe 7, just out in places that I usually go. Out in Knights Ferry, there are some ponds on near Horseshoe Road, which is just down the road from where I'm living, and that eagles frequent. And so I do a lot of birds. I like birds of prey mainly,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's my main focus around here. There around the lakes, there are a lot of deer, but they're not as nice as they are near Yosemite. They don't let you
Oh.
get very close, so those are a little tricky. Um, but I like going down to. We go down to Monterey quite a bit, and I love sea
Hmm.
otters, and so I'm always trying to get the
Oh,
perfect
yes.
picture of a sea otter, which I
Uh-huh.
haven't got the perfect picture of a sea otter yet. I'm still trying.
A good ambition.
And
Oh my.
this was quite interesting. I was out at this barn, and the owner of the property here had given me permission to go out on the property, so I could shoot this, and the ranch owner across the street also. So I can shoot this barn from any angle. So it's very nice to have a place. It's just a few minutes from where I live. And I was out there and a little funnel cloud formed. And I took a picture of it, and I didn't really think it was a great photo. It was just a little, what do they call it, downspout, when it's not quite a tornado, it doesn't hit the ground. I think they call it a downspout or something. But anyways, I took a picture of that. Well, that one, USA Today picked up that picture and did a little thing on it. And so that went out like almost 300 newspapers. The Oakdale gets hit by a tornado, and it was really not this part of it. Now, a little later, this thunder cell came through, and that cloud was rotating, and it was kicking out lightning. I wasn't lucky enough to capture the lightning, but there was hail and winds that would hit you from one direction, and then a little later hit you from the other direction. So there was crazy rotation there. And when it got a little closer, though, I scooted out of there and got in my car because I was sure I was going to get struck by lightning or tornado was going to drop right on me or something. So, but yeah, it's quite.
Now, how does USA Today and other purveyors of photography know about you? Is it your Instagram account?
Instagram, yes. Jeez. And it is not what it used to be. Let me tell you, it's not the friendly site that it used to be. But yes, Instagram. That's pretty much how everybody has found me, except for NASA. NASA, you actually submit your photos to them. They have a APOD submission page. And so, and it used to be like the first photo I had published by National Geographic, you would sign up and have an account. So they would do a lot of checks. They were very particular about if you have photos with people in them, you had to have the people's names. And so they really regulated what you submitted to them and what they would publish. So they had a bunch of strict rules. And all these places have release forms. And once you get on file with them and get to know the editors a little bit, it's quite a bit easier. But when you first start submitting, you have to fill out all this paperwork. And like I've done some for Discovery Channel and Science Channel, and those you have big release forms for those too. And oh yes, that's the barn from the other side.
Oh,
that's the other.
That's why I brought it up. Yeah,
beautiful.
Very nice. That is a day where I was taking pictures looking. So that's looking east at sunset. So the sun is directly behind me, and it had just set where I was lower than the clouds. So the sun had just set, and so the clouds were being lit up that pretty pink color, and that's a hailstorm up there. Just really strong downpour. And I was shooting pictures looking behind me, looking west. I was shooting the sun setting behind the hills, and there's another windmill behind me. And I turned around and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that color. Switched lenses. So this is shot with 100 to 400 lens, and that compressed it. Those mountains are actually probably 20 miles behind that barn. And so the scene is compressed. I was 500 yards from the barn when I took that, and then zoomed in. So that compresses the scene and makes everything look closer together. So you lose a little perspective when you do that, but it makes the scene look a little more dramatic.
Very dramatic. Yeah, I love those windmills.
Oh my gosh, I love windmills. I've even taken night photographies with windmill night photos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've got an aero motor just a little bit away from my house.
Do you really?
The street. I do. I love
do
that.
The owls and hawks and things sit on it?
Yes, they do. Yep.
They love them. They absolutely love them. That one by the barn will scare the heck out of you if you're out there at night. You can't see anything, and it doesn't always work. But every once in a while, it'll be a constant wind, but the windmill won't be turning. All of a sudden, it'll kind of break free because it's very old and turn, and then water shoots out onto the ground. And so you'll be sitting there, you're taking photos at night, you hear coyotes, you're just all alone and you can't see anything. You're waiting for your long exposure to expose. And then this water shoots out next to you. And you just want to jump through the roof.
Oh, yeah.
Very spooky.
Gosh, the Wild West.
Yeah, it is a little bit. It is a little bit. And that
Oh,
photo,
lovely.
that one, I was really, really happy with this because it was a classic, um, rule of three, good foreground, nice and close, midground, and then the background is the clouds and sunset. So this was your classic landscape photography that I wanted to do. And I just found this. It was low tide at sunset and at Cannon Beach in Oregon, and it left this pool around this rock, and I thought it looked like you could get some pretty colors around it. And so I put my tripod as low as it would go and shot from about a foot away from that. And I pumped my f-stop up to like f18, so everything would be pretty much in focus in one exposure. And the light was very kind to me, so I didn't have to do too much to it. So yes, I and that was, everybody says, wow, you got a really nice sunset at Cannon Beach. It's usually clouded over, apparently. And it was the only day I've ever been there. So I got
Oh,
very,
wow.
yeah, I got very lucky.
Did any
So
publication
a
use
brief
this?
question here.
Mm.
You're obviously very well educated in the technological aspects of photography. Were you self-taught, or did you take classes?
It's
Where did you learn
self-taught.
this?
Self-taught. I purchased the instruction book. I saved up for my camera for quite a while. And I purchased the instruction book about a year before I got the camera. And so I just learned how to do everything before I had the camera. So when I got it, I
Hmm.
learned pretty rapidly, and it was a lot of fun to go out and put into practice what I had read about. And so just time doing it is how I learned. Just going out and pushing those buttons and seeing what worked and what didn't. And you pick up little things like when you look at other photographers' work, they'll talk about something, and I'm sure I've picked up terminology and things like that from others, but mainly just doing a little bit of reading and talking to other photographers.
Are you part of a photography club, or I mean, how do you get to know
No,
other photographers?
once again, the good old Instagram. I've met some wonderful people. Some of my best friends. They come from the Bay Area and take photos of the barn and stuff, and we spend the day. And they and he's a professional wedding photographer, and he was into photography long before me, and so I picked up things from him also.
Nice.
I don't know if I can say his name.
So tell us about
name is
this.
AJ.
It's
I'm
an
sorry.
iconic place. Yeah.
Oh yes, this is Midway Falls, Big Sur on the California coast.
Ooh.
Yeah, and that waterfall, I think it's 110 feet, falls into the ocean there. And this is the only time I went to this spot. And I don't like taking pictures in the middle of the day with bright sunshine. It's not what I'm really good at. I have friends that can do better, but it's what I had. And so I don't know that I did justice to the colors of the water. The water is just glows in that cove. It's just like a jewel. It's amazing. So gorgeous there.
At what time
So
of day would the colors be best in terms of photography?
As far as the water, probably
Yeah.
overcast. Any time of day with overcast really takes the harshness out. And if you have a camera with decent ability to bring up shadows, you can shoot really well in overcast conditions. You get so many reflections on a bright day that it makes it difficult. And on the coast, when it's bright, you tend to get a yellowing or a bluing effect from all the moisture in the air. And
Oh.
yeah, and it'll give you a hazy looking photo. And so it's very hard to get that clearness back to it. That
I
crispness.
know I notice that you have a lot of foreground uh, objects in your photographs. Is
Yes,
that intentional?
it
And
is.
could you talk about that?
Sure. Well, one of the things I read in one of my books about photography before I got a camera was that you should always try to include a foreground and a midground and a background in your photos. And if you can, a leading line to your main subject would be nice, like a
Hmm.
trail going up to someone sitting under a tree. Something like that, or intersecting fences that lead the person into the photo. And the easiest thing for me to usually pull off is just something nice in the foreground to give you something to focus on. And there's balance to it. Like I could have centered that I forget the name of that bush there, but it flowers once a year. But if I centered it, it would be the main focus, and I wanted the waterfall to be the main focus and the bright water. So it's off to the side, and and then there's just a little bit of ground showing, and it gives a little depth because the beach is 100 feet down there or so. And so it gives you a little depth to have the foreground and the midground that way. Uh, and it's just something I always try to do. I don't always pull it off, but I always try to.
I noticed there was red in the foreground, and then the yellow of that blossom, and the blue water in the background, and then the green. So it was like every single part of it had some very, very strong, bright color. Just lovely, lovely
Thank you.
composition.
And I try to find color contrasts because sometimes colors tend to bleed together, especially on the coast. Everything wants to bleed
Mm.
together. And so if I have a yellow, I'll go into Lightroom and I will change that yellow either more green or more orange if everything's yellow. And then I'll take another plant that's yellow and I'll change it the opposite of that one.
Hmm.
So it's actually I try to do what is an accurate representation. The camera can't catch everything the eye can. So you try to get it to where it looks the way it did when you could see it. But it's almost impossible. But
Hmm.
I like to separate it so that people don't have a hard time separating the objects. And some artists that are really, really good photographers don't do that. They do almost the opposite, and they pull it off. Well, I haven't learned how to do that, but this is the way I do it. Highly contrasted, bright colors usually, uh, and easily discernible segments. So
Hmm.
you can glance at it and say, "I see what that is," uh, and move on. It's mainly for people scrolling through photos. They can look at it and appreciate it really quickly.
Oh, David, you're muted. There
But
you go.
yeah, okay. Let's change the subject a little bit. You're going to be a judge in a contest. Have you ever done that before?
I have not. I
Okay,
have not ever done it. Um,
okay.
I'm going to do my very best, and I'm going to ask for advice when I need it.
Okay.
And and I imagine I can do quite well on technical aspects, exposure, composition, and I feel like I have a good eye for the artistic. I haven't been educated in the arts, but I feel like I have a good eye for what is good, even if I can't do it.
Hmm.
Sounds perfect.
That was my next question, which is, you think you're going to be a real tough judge, yeah? Or because some of these pictures are going to be coming from amateurs who don't
Right.
even know what aperture is.
Well, you know what? If it tells an amazing story, that might take precedence over having perfect exposure. Or maybe the imperfect exposure works with that photo. So the overall impression I think, is what I would look at.
Whether it works.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly. Whether it's
artistic.
appealing, whether the story comes through.
Yeah, yeah. Because I asked that because you have this technical knowledge, and you've also worked with highly technical equipment, which again, a lot of us don't have.
Right, right. And
Yeah.
I have a friend that sends me cell phone pictures all the time, and he takes some excellent cell phone pictures. He really does. It doesn't You don't have to have great equipment, and he's very artistic, and he finds the art in photos without using the expensive equipment. So, and I appreciate it. I love it.
Oh, good. So a lot of entrants are breathing a sigh of relief.
I'm like, oh, good.
I know I would be. It's like, no, I don't have that cute
Right,
little thing that keeps the earth in,
right. Don't let that
compensates for
bother
the
you.
movement of the earth. Yeah,
You can actually do astrophotography on cell phones now.
really.
Yes, you can. I think the Samsung is probably the best one, but my brother actually went up to Alaska and took aurora borealis pictures with his cell phone that turned out well.
Wow.
Yes, I was impressed.
Okay, like that. Yeah. So we have one more
Do you?
picture here.
Okay.
See what this one is.
Oh, yes.
Oh, Multnomah.
Multnomah Falls, yes, Columbia River Gorge in Oregon, and not a real big story on this one. It's just I just thought it was really pretty. It's one of the most
Hmm.
beautiful places I've ever been. They had a fire the previous year, so there wasn't all the pretty fall foliage when I took the picture. But I think it was probably a 5 to 7 second exposure. I put on a filter, a I think it was may have been a 10 stop filter, um, so I could do a long exposure without overexposing the water and get that creamy look to the water. Just a neutral density, so it doesn't give a color cast to it.
Beautiful.
The bridge was closed. Sometimes you can take a picture and you can have let's say your wife is with you. You can have her walk out in a red jacket and put in a yellow umbrella or something artistic, and have her walk out and stand on that bridge right in front of the waterfall. But the bridge was closed when I was there, so because of the fire, I can't do
But
it.
she had her red outfit.
Oh, we were gonna buy one.
Good plan.
We didn't plan. We just kind of
Yeah.
haphazardly go through and honestly, we didn't plan on going to this spot. We were on our way to Cannon Beach, and what are all those people doing? And well, there's a parking lot. Let's go in and see. So we did, and I walked around the corner. I saw it, and I'm like, I've seen that before, and I didn't even know the name of it. That's that Multnomah or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm definitely taking pictures, and so I grabbed my tripod and my filters and my wide angle lens, and yes, sir, that's what I did.
Well,
Boy,
I've
it seems
been
like
there.
photography and
I've been there as well, and there's a whole series of waterfalls along that road.
Is
Did you stop at any of the other ones?
Did not. If you couldn't see a big crowd of people looking at it, I didn't. It was my first time through the area, and didn't even know. We made it to, what was it, Thor's Well, I think, along the coast. It's like a sinkhole that fills with water. Took some pictures there, and that was really cool too. And so I'm just sure that that whole area has amazing, amazing things to see.
Well, let me see if we have any other pictures before we leave here.
it seems like photography is a really good excuse to do traveling, or vice
Oh my
versa.
gosh, it is the best. And when my wife wants to go somewhere that I wouldn't have wanted to go, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have wanted to go there. Now it's like, oh yeah, I want to go. Yeah. So every little trip, even if it's just a couple hours away, I want to go.
Nice.
Makes everything a little more exciting.
Yeah.
And you just never know what's
Where-
around the next corner.
Well, I think
you
we've
have
covered all of the pictures you keen with, but
Yeah,
this is the most definitive one, obviously, for the type of work you do.
that is how I got my start right there.
Yeah.
The astrophotography. It was, and it's honestly the learning process on that is not that terrible, and it was the most fun to learn. The learning was fun because you don't know what it's going to look like until that exposure is over and it comes onto the back of your camera. And
Mhm.
I even do that to navigate where I am at night. If I'm in a valley
Hmm.
and I'm trying to find where I'm at, I take a long exposure so I can see what's ahead of me, and then I keep walking because I don't like to, especially if there's other people taking pictures in the area. You don't want to shine a flashlight around because it ruins their
Oh.
picture. So I will navigate with the camera.
Ah.
Yeah,
So you have to be a night person.
you have to be a night owl, which the older I get, the less I am. So I'm thinking that eventually I'll probably switch to a telescope that I can use in my backyard.
Oh, no, 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 no.
Oh no, did I cross the line?
No. I thought you were going to say that you were going to take more pictures of Maui, on Maui.
Oh my gosh, well, that is a dream.
Yeah.
I can't get there every year. I think we were supposed to go there for our honeymoon and we made it on our 25th anniversary. So
Yeah.
Do you have a website, Eric?
I do not. I've been
But you
gonna
have
do it.
Instagram.
I have Instagram and I used to sell quite a few photos. I kind of got tired of that. I got honestly pretty Insta famous for a while, and there were a lot of problems with that. I
Oh.
mean, I met a lot of good people, but there were a lot of strange people out there, stalkers, things like that, that would show up at my work. And I even got death
Really?
threats. Yeah, and for
Dear
no
me.
reason. And I would be like, "Hey, I'm just a photographer," you know. I mean,
Hmm.
but they would, I don't know. They thought they could get their message across if they went onto my uh, successful page and sent their, So I
Oh.
don't. It just got very complicated. And now that I'm not nearly as Insta famous as I was anymore, and so it'd probably be fine now. Everything's mellowed out. But there for a while, my page was growing by thousands per day, thousands of followers per day, and
Gee.
uh, and they were showing, my pictures were showing all over the world, and and it was just too much. So I just kind of
Hmm.
backed off.
So then the obvious question is fame related to fortune?
It, I'd say it's probably pretty closely related, but it wasn't in my case. I didn't push myself as far as fortune. I was more concerned with being respected by these different magazines and things like that, and considering myself a good photographer. It's really what I wanted, and so I really didn't push the financial part of it. Uh, looking back, maybe I should have. Maybe I missed my opportunity, but
Really?
I don't know. I don't know because I didn't choose that path, so I'll never know. But I uh, I don't regret any of it. That's for sure.
Well, you're being true to your art. I think
Yes.
that's
I kind of feel like a
better than
sellout a little
fortune.
bit if you do the whole self promotion, and it seems a little shameless self promotion, and you see those people doing that. For me, it was always kind of a turnoff, and I didn't really want to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you're going to be successful, you probably have to. If it's going to be your profession, you probably have to. And for me, it's always
Have
just a secondary thing.
Have you been exhibited your
A little bit.
work?
A little bit. There's a place called Art of Visuals on Instagram, their page, and they're pretty respected. And they do shows. They did a show that was in Grand Central Station in New York.
Oh, nice.
One of my photos was hanging there for a while, and
Oh,
and then a place in Austria. It was an art school, but I cannot remember the name of it. It's been so long. That was they actually got permission through email to use my photo as a learning aid in their studio, and then they exhibited it also. So
Oh, that's great.
and that was that moon photo that NASA did also, and that's where they found out about it, was through NASA. So and even
Wow.
though when you submit your photos to NASA for APOD, you're also, you agree that you're going to let people use the photo for learning aids. That's okay. They still contacted me and made sure it was okay. Very, very nice.
Oh, I think that's wonderful that your photography is teaching other people. That's like the highest form of compliment.
You know what? It was. I'm still. That was 2018 that I got my first APOD, and that was.
Mhm.
It's like, for me, it was like winning an Oscar. It was just.
Yeah.
It was an honor that I'm still. I mean, I think I got goosebumps just now. It still affects me. That was the big winner for me.
Well, let me say that I'm impressed. It's like a modern approach to photography. You know, you didn't start in the dark room. You
Right.
didn't print your own things. The Instagram stuff is brand new. Didn't exist when I was growing up.
Right.
You know, and so I'm impressed to talk with or listen to someone who's been successful with this online approach. So I really appreciate having listened to you today. Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, David. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
So
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's really been fascinating, and I love your photography. Can't wait to see more.
Thank you, Linda. I appreciate it.
so Eric, you and I will be in touch with regard to the contest as we
Absolutely.
go along and we get closer. Yeah.
Okay.
And to people watching, if I'm creating a lag or an echo, I apologize. It seems that every time we do a broadcast, there's something technical goes wrong. So I think I need to hire a StreamYard exec or a tech
There you go.
to come and take care of these things. So thanks for putting up with this little glitch. Um, I think by my remaining client, we did a very fine presentation. So anyway, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I've learned a lot. Okay.
Thank you.
So let's see if we can end this. Here we go.